Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Kingdom Recon podcast. I am one of your hosts, Arrowhead Tom, or just Tom. Down in the corner, you can read that for yourselves. I am joined by one of my usual co-hosts tonight, my good friend Randy, who's on Twitter. We will not call it the other name. We are stuck in our ways.
We are. We're old
We
school.
are. Yeah.
Like
but
the
you can
grumpy
find
old
him.
men, we will not change.
Yeah. We have too much. We've got too much. Spend too much time adjusting our beard and taking care of that. We don't have time to keep up with these name changes. But he's on the social media platform at Chief of the North. Randy, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing awesome, man. It's always a pleasure to join you once again to talk some football and got a little extra pep in our step now that the combine's done and we have all these fun fancy numbers to talk about and overhype a whole lot of guys and throw a bunch of guys to the curb just because they didn't run real fast in their shorts or jump real high. So forget everything that you've watched on tape. Just go by the combine numbers and everything will be great, right?
Yeah, that is a philosophy that we here at Kingdom Recon, we promote that pretty heavily.
Right.
We're big believers in
the underwear Olympics,
ignoring on-field production, and based on that, future number 1 overall pick, Xavier Worthy.
Write it down. Send the card.
Yep, lock it in. Hey, you know what? It's happened before. I'll remind you that the last person who broke the NFL 40-yard dash time went number 9 in a certain draft class, right before another player went number 10. So
history says, yeah.
So our NFL history, if you can, I tell you what, in the comments, if you can tell me who both those players are, I will send you a lock of Randy's beard hair in the mail. That is, we don't really have the budget to do giveaways right now. But if
I don't need to be any part of any kind of crazy black magic voodoo hex by any stretch, by any random
person. I'll get it while he's sleeping. Don't worry about
somehow wants to plant my DNA somewhere it shouldn't be. I don't know.
Listen, you worry, you let me worry about that. If you can leave it in the comments, or as always, if you just want to leave questions, comments, concerns, who we left off our lists, because of course we've got some lists today's, and they're not your normal top 5 or worst guys, winners, losers. I think that's, as Randy alluded to in the opening, it's hard to make that case. The combine's not there to make or break somebody's draft position, although for some of these players it has a really big effect on them.
Yeah.
So we're doing 2 different lists tonight. The first one is 5 guys that we're rewatching after the combine, and these are guys that, for better or worse, what we expected them to run, how we expected them to test, whether it's in the 3-count, whether it's the bench, vertical, 40-yard dash is always the one that we talk about. But there's a lot of testing that happens at the combine, and each one's kind of different or relevant for different positions in different ways. These are guys that we went, that doesn't really match up with what we saw on tape. And so, we want to go back and check the tape because the tape really does tell the truth, right? At the end of the day. I know Randy tends to get really excited about combine numbers and just wants to base all of his evaluations on combine numbers. But
absolutely. It's how I roll.
Yeah. No, I feel terrible. If this is your first time listening, we are 5 minutes in and we've talked about sending out locks of hair, and we're making jokes about the combine numbers and all that. Just to be clear, we're both avid believers in watching the tape. But this is one of the things that can happen with watching the tape and watching guys play, especially maybe when it's a level of competition thing. Maybe it's somebody's dealing with an injury. Maybe it's and it could be good or bad, right? 5 guys that we're rewatching. So I want to make sure that we make sure this is not necessarily a negative or positive thing. Just say this is different than what we expected it to be, or hey, this caught my attention. Maybe he's faster, maybe he's slower. Like, I need to go back and verify this. So we we've each got a list of 5 guys that we're going to jump into. And of course, as you go along, I want you to think about some guys that you were thinking about. If you're new to the draft season or draft process, one of the things I believe I heard it from Dane Brugler this year, but it's interesting to do as you're following prospects. Try to guess or estimate, and even just write it down beforehand what you think that they're going to run based on their tape, and then see how far off you are. Right? Because it's one thing if you go, yeah, that's a 4.3 guy, that's a low 4.4 guy, and he runs a 4.45. Okay, I can live with that. But if you think he's the 4.3 guy and he's running the 4.5s, the 4.6s, you might have to go, let's take a look, right? So that's a whole lot of explanation, a whole lot of opener up. But I'm going to let Randy take the floor. Randy, give us any one of your guys on your list of guys to go back and rewatch.
Yeah, and I'm gonna jump right off number one. I'm gonna go with Garrett's draft crush. I'm gonna start with Xavier Worthy. I mean that's Garrett's guy. He has been banging the drum for Xavier Worthy for his first round pick for weeks now, and I kind of I jab at him a little bit, saying trying to maybe knock him down a little bit, but what he did in the 40 is that's just stupid fast. A 4.21 breaking the record. But the thing that I need to go back and watch. So I mean, everybody knew he was going to be fast. Some people said he was probably going to be in that high 4.2s, low 4.2s. That's well done by him. But what I need to do is I need to see dive in a little bit deeper to see how that speed translates on the field. And I think really the thing that worries me the most about Xavier Worthy is the 165 pounds. That's awful light. That's a lot of high school freshmen and sophomore guys, weight, playing wide receiver out there. Like I get that maybe he tried to cut a few pounds here and there just to try to run a little faster at the combine, but I just don't see how a guy playing wide receiver in the NFL is going to take a season-long pounding of at 165 pounds. Now today's football is different from yesterday's football. The huge hits are not necessarily part of the game, but at 165 pounds, can he get off of press? Mm-hmm. If say Charvarius Ward's up there on him, is he going to be able to get around, get his hands off? Is he going to be able to break off and actually get into his route? 165? I don't know. Maybe he's good enough to get around the press completely. Who knows?
Well, and we saw going back to the AFC playoff game against the Dolphins. We saw Tyreek Hill. We saw him get bodied by a couple of corners, but L'Jarius Sneed specifically. Tyreek Hill has about 20 pounds on Xavier Worthy, and Tyreek Hill is all muscle. I need to go back and I wonder. Hold on, real quick. Let me just Google Xavier Worthy shirtless. Hold on. Let's see how he's done.
History.
Oh, okay. We're gonna close that out. So, anyways, don't do that, listeners. Tyreek is a unique athlete in his own right, and has a lot of muscle on his frame, and so I think that's a valid point. I'll talk more about Worthy in a little bit, but yeah, I think I would be curious, and I want to hear what you think when you kind of go back. Do you see 4.21 speed when you watch him? That was because I expect him to be fast. This is a good example. Like I expect him to be like 4.35, 4.3, maybe in the high 4.2s. I did not expect him to break the record. I'll give that hats off to him. That's not 4.21. What's the difference between 4.21 and 4.3? That's a big deal, in the open field.
Right. That's also a lot of people.
Yeah, the mental component too, right? Like you have a reputation, and sometimes you're just like, oh man, I'm gonna be running with this guy all day, right?
And if you just kind of look back, like Tyreek ran a 4.29. That's still stupid fast, but look at what Tyreek does in the open field, running away from guys. It's just
4.29 or a 4.24.
I thought last time I looked it was 4.29. I could be mistaken, but Either way, 5/100ths of a second, 5/10ths of a second, whatever it is, it's not. I mean, it's still crazy fast. But so, like I said, that's one thing I got to go back and look. Yeah, does that speed really translate? How does he do against press man coverage? How does his footwork look off the line and stuff like that to avoid that?
You were correct.
My number two, I got my two guy on my list is another Xavier. I mentioned him just briefly pre-show, Xavier Leggett. Mm-hmm. He is one of the absolute hardest guys for me to evaluate because he was literally a ghost until this year. He was on a roster, had a few catches every year, nothing special, did literally to nothing. And then all of a sudden, boom, this year, Xavier Leggett looks like just an absolute beast. And you're like, where's the disconnect? Or did he just grow up overnight? Did he grow up over the summer, from last year, this year? Like, is there an injury history that I'm not aware of? Did he, I know he played some quarterback in high school. Did he start out at quarterback and transition to wide receiver a little late? There's just a lot more that I have to dig in to figure out. And from what I understand, people that I chat with online, with on Twitter, a lot of us have those exact same questions. Like, who is Xavier Leggett? Where did he come from? How did this year happen? And is he going to be able to sustain this type of production when there was no evidence of it, prior to this season? So
yeah, he just kind of exploded out of nowhere this last year, and exploded is the correct term, but he was one that definitely he's actually on my other list, but you're naming all these guys. Did we write the same list just backwards? And
let's hope not. Let's go with a couple of your guys now.
Yeah, let's hop over. So we're talking about wide receivers. I want to talk about one that I immediately, first thing after the combine, went back and watched. In fact, I just finished writing him up, and he was a guy that actually had a really good Senior Bowl. But I feel like he didn't, even after the Senior Bowl, he didn't get talked about a lot. Even though, universally, I heard his name. Had a good practice. Ricky Pearsall out of Florida, a wide receiver, came in at 6'1", 189 pounds, which is, it's a healthy thing. And he coming into his last year at Florida, they said, hey, this is a guy who's probably going to be a slot receiver, and he showed that he can do a lot more than that. But he had some phenomenal numbers. So a 4.41 40 time, which again, and this, compared to some of these other ones, you're like, that's not, crazy good. But once you get past that, so you get to his vertical, right? 42-inch vertical, which was third in the group. Mm-hmm. He had a 10.9 broad jump, which was a top 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He was eighth in broad. He was tied for seventh. One of the things that I thought was really important, he had the top 3 cone time at 6.64, which the second guy behind him, Luke McCaffrey, was at 6.7. So that's a pretty big jump. And so some of these other guys, and now not everybody tested and all that, in the 3 cone, but and then there was another one that he stood out, and let me make sure. Yeah, he was top 3 in the 20-yard shuttle, and then did everybody bench? He had 17 reps on the bench press, which again, pretty solid for a wide receiver. So I went back and I watched him. I already watched him, and he's very perplexing to me still, just because I like him. I don't know what to do with him, but I like him. And I feel like he's one of those guys that's going to carve out a 10-year career in the NFL, and we're just going to be talking about him and going, man, he's really solid. Just a really solid receiver. But I was surprised at how I kind of expected him to be kind of like that middle of the pack tester in most of those. And his 40 time was about, actually, it was a little higher than what I expected. I figured he'd be a high 4.4s, low 4.5. So he was a low 4.4. 4.41 is almost in the 4.3s. So, and then I just went back and watched him, and I think I saw a lot of that on tape. A lot of the that improved athleticism from his junior year to his senior year. And then I am gonna continue. I'm gonna steal one more because I'm gonna get into some of these beefy guys, and I'm sure you've got some opinions on these offensive linemen, and we're gonna go. And this one I think is intriguing for me for a couple of reasons. Because he was on my list early, and then I just kind of soured on him throughout the season. I wasn't really the biggest fan. I felt like he just looked more raw. Like maybe this is a day 3 guy, like early day 3 you take based on traits, but I just feel like I have to go back and give him another look, and that's Patrick Paul out of Houston. I was really interesting guy. He had an okay 40 time. I'm not super like making a big deal about that. But his measurements 6'7.5", 36.25-inch arms, 331 pounds, which is a little heavier than I thought he'd come in at because he always looked really, really lanky. But I thought he carried himself pretty well. Had an okay vertical. It was more so just getting to kind of see him outside the pad, see him moving around. There was something about his testing specifically that just made me go, I need to go back and watch this because I kind of forgot him. I kind of wrote him off, and he didn't. It's not that he necessarily wowed me or anything. It was just like that. Oh yeah, this guy exists. And if you're looking for a guy with some athletic potential in day 3 or even late in day 2, he put up 30 reps on the bench press, which was solid. There was a number I'm clicking through here, and I should have wrote it down. There was something that really caught my eye, and now I'm blanking on it. But I just kept keeping kind of track of him as he was going throughout the day. Once I wasn't his vertical was fine. 29-inch vertical. He was okay. Wasn't like the craziest athlete out there, but just seeing him move around. Definitely was a lot thicker than I thought he was going to be, which I thought was important for him. And then just his measurables being as large as he was. Again, before the season, like there's people who had him as a second, maybe even sneaking into the first round. But I think to me, the weight and the just showing that he has enough athleticism to hang in the NFL was pretty big. So I'm gonna go back and watch him. Probably gonna be disappointed, but he made my list of guys that I want to check out again. All right, back to you, Randy.
Yeah, and Patrick Paul. I've been having a little bit of a conversation today with Avery on Twitter about him. I don't see it. Like I see the body, I see the 6'8", I see the 331, I see the measurables. I watch him on tape. Everybody, at the beginning of the season, he was a late second round pick, and that's where probably some people see him more as a second rounder right now. I don't. I think he is a project. I think he's a 4th to 5th round at best. He has decent athleticism. To me, there are times where his feet just look stuck in the mud. I think he plays too high. I think he's lazy in his technique with that. His hand placement and punch, it just seems erratic to me most of the time. But what really bothers me the most is just that want to. We talk a lot about that dog mentality or that tenacity that we want our offensive linemen to have. I don't see it ever in the run game. I think his run blocking is absolutely atrocious. So
that's fair.
I am not a Patrick Paul guy.
That's how I felt about him down the stretch, and so or at least early on in the season. But then, like I said, just getting him back in front of me is like that reminder of, hey, like how did he finish out his season? How did he? Because I know some people are really high on him, so it's maybe more just like I have to go rewatch and verify.
Right.
Because I think sometimes, and this is again where you want to verify, like you think, oh yeah, this guy is trash, and I don't even need to worry about him. And it's like, oh yeah, he still exists. Here he is at the combine, putting up respectable numbers. Yeah. Right? He didn't crash and burn. He didn't have an Orlando Brown Jr. day.
Right.
So he, it was interesting.
Yeah. It was kind of nice that Avery and I, we both kind of came to the agreement that we're kind of two peas in a pod when it comes to him, and that we just don't see him where a lot of the people do. He's a project guy. He's a 4th, 5th round draft pick to me.
And just while we're on the subject, because I feel like we mentioned Avery a lot, and we will do our best to get him to hop in the show one day. Avery's a friend.
I put another plug in today for that. So
yeah, he's a friend of the pod. Somebody who I think we all have a lot of respect for on Twitter. I still can't believe he doesn't have more Twitter followers than he does.
Right.
So if you're listening to this podcast and you're not following our guy Avery, his username is ADI_Avery, AVERY. His handle is at, this is going to be hard, impeccable GRPXS. So IMPECCABLEGRPXS. Pause and repeat that until you need to. Make sure our guy Avery a follow. We'll also tag him when we drop this episode, if I remember.
Right.
But if you're following, Avery was he was the first one to put Brendan Fisk on my radar, and now they're talking about this kid as a first rounder.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I remember going, oh, who? Some Florida State dude. That's just one of your Florida State guys. Avery.
After we watched that week 1 LSU Florida State game, we're like, who's this Braden Fisk guy? And then Avery's like, this is my guy. You got to watch him all year. And
yeah, even before the game when we were, see, he's been all about it. He's put us on to a couple guys. So sure. Shout out to our friend Avery. So, all right, I'm passing the ball back to you, my friend. Who's next on your list?
I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep it with the big boys up front. And I'm actually gonna cheat just a little bit, but I'm gonna throw out a pair of Huskies here.
No, you can't take both of them. I got one of them.
You got one of them? Well, yeah. We talked a little bit on Twitter today, thinking, can Rosengarten, can he play left tackle? And there's a lot of tape where I watch and games that I watched earlier in the year where I'm like, wow, he looks really good. He's got good strength. He's got good pop. His feet aren't the fastest or the most agile or nimble guy, but he does a serviceable job. I mean, there are times where I think, you could play left tackle in the NFL. And then you watch a few more stats and you watch another game and you're like, he might be a serviceable backup for a long time. So he's a guy that I would like to kind of dig back into, take a closer look, and just kind of try to figure out if he could be, a serviceable left tackle in the NFL, if you could plug him in and play. And the other dude, Fatano, I know we've had many conversations, especially with Josh, to where we think like he is a perennial all-pro guard if he slides in, just with his mentality, his movement skills, his build. He's 6'4", so if he did play tackle, he'd be one of the shorter starting tackles in the NFL. But that's not to say that it can't be done. But I think with what he showed at the combine with his testing and his on-field drills, like dude looked good. Like that guy can move. That's I still think that I think he has the skill set to play tackle. I'm not 100% sure if he has the height or the length to do it, but I still think he is move him into guard, and he's an all-pro guard to me. There's the way he can move in space and engage and keep his feet and his balance. And when he hits you and when he gets his hands on you, like you feel it. He's got those heavy hands. He's got that tenacity that I love. So I want to go back and I want to watch the Huskies a little bit more. Just one, because the Huskies were a whole lot of fun to watch this year with that offense and Penix and the wide receivers and the O-line. A lot of fun to watch. Yeah. So, couple guys that I want to go back to and just kind of see if I can make up my mind on where they actually where their best fit will be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I agree. I think both, and it may be one of those situations where both of them can, but where should they play? Right. I pulled him back up. So we're talking about Roger Rosengarten and Troy Fout now. And gosh, I think we're all in love with Troy. The kid he just moves, he glides. like a big man shouldn't. And
Right.
but Roger was a guy like, man, this Washington Huskies team was just stacked.
A lot of talent. A lot of talent.
You see why they did so well this past year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Roger is an interesting one. So here's what I learned about. I actually learned this today. So he played left tackle his whole life until Penix got to Washington the last 2 years. Then he switched over to right because they wanted him on purpose to be the blindside protector.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he's a pretty highly ranked recruit and that kind of thing. He was one that I wanted to rewatch because he ran the fastest 40. He looked he looked clunky still, but he showed more movement than I thought he would.
Mm-hmm.
And again, he's not in pads. The other thing that I like is he's 21 years old. He's a young guy.
Right.
I could see you look at his frame and go, yeah, he's got some weight that can be molded, and he could probably put on some healthier weight. But yeah, I'm with you on that one on both those guys. Actually, I don't need to go rewatch Troy. I know what Troy is. Like,
Right.
feel pretty good about that.
Yeah.
So I know we've got one in common, and I'm gonna get this one out here before, because I'm terrified that you're gonna steal this one too.
We probably should have done a little bit beforehand on. All right, who's on your list? Maybe.
All right, so
but at least we're
this one. This one's listed as a tight end, but this is where I'm cheating a little bit. Give me the caveat of I think this guy is much more of a flex kind of player, more of that. He's going to be a tight end. He's going to be your H-back, your fullback, a lead blocker. And yeah. So Ben Sinnott out of Kansas State, definitely still a day 3 guy. Have you seen his? Did you see his testing? Let me start there.
Ben Sinnott's. Yeah. So you what? Was it a high 4.6?
Yeah, 4.68. But Did you see what he weighed in at?
Yeah, right around 250.
250, big kid.
Yeah.
So here's my mind. I'm looking at him more as, and this is like that. It's K-State. He's a local kid, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of people who have a buzz. Did you see his vertical jump?
No.
Vertical jump, 40 inches.
At 6'4", 250?
Yep, 40 inches.
Well done.
Did you see his broad jump?
No.
10.6.
Dude's got some pop.
So he led the combine in tight ends in the following categories, all right? Vertical, broad jump, free cone. He was 3rd in the 20-yard shuttle. Did he bench? He didn't bench. So I say all that to go, if you're on day 3 and you're just wanting that like utility player for your offense, somebody you could develop, somebody that and I love the kid's story, right? Walk on, added a bunch of weight. Just I want to avoid the cliches, but you can just tell this kid has worked really hard for everything he's had. He's got kind of a wonky build, but man, for him to show up and go, hey, look, guys, I belong. And not just that I belong, but, Theo Johnson, who's an athletic freak at tight end, like he's hanging out with Theo Johnson and coming in at 6'4", 250. It's a very compact build, I think, for a tight end. And I think as a blocker on tape, technique-wise, he's not where I want him to be. But if he's willing to work as hard as I think he's willing to work, and you can you grab him late day 3 or even as a priority guy, like that's a guy that I think you can stick in your roster as your 3rd tight end, as a guy you can, motion in and out of the backfield. You can do some fun things with. I think he flashed, some stuff at K-State to show like, hey, like, yeah, he can catch the ball here or there. But in my mind, he's kind of doing that H-back role, that third tight end, kind of that flex player. But I was just looking over him, like looking over numbers, and I went, What? Did not expect that from him. The last guy on this list that I'm not a Ben Sinnott guy. I've never been a Ben Sinnott guy, but those numbers made me go, all right, I got to go back and look because those are impressive numbers for.
Yeah, for a 6'4", 250 guy with a 40-inch vertical and that kind of broad jump, that just shows he's got a lot of lower body strength, which is going to serve him well in that role. And one thing that I'm going to like about him right off the bat is that he's a Coach Kleiman guy. You know, all you guys know me. You know, I'm a huge NDSU guy. That's my alma mater. Coach Kleiman, you know, kept us at the mountaintop for a long time, and when he moved down to K-State, he took that mentality of how to build a winner and to take those blue collar dudes that work hard, good guys that are going to give you everything they have all the time with nonstop motors. So if he's a Kleiman guy, he can be one of my guys for sure.
I got him first. So
that I carry as a former coach, things that I look for: the nonstop effort, the attitude, the willingness to do whatever it takes to get better, and all those things. So I look at his 6'4", 250. Yeah, you know, so prototypical. Yeah, you'd like to see him at 6'6". You know, that's fine. 2 inches, 250 is a decent build that still allows him to be serviceable in the run game, but still mobile enough in the passing game. So I don't necessarily see the 6'4" as a huge hindrance. But with his testing numbers and kind of how I know he's been coached in the past, I'll take a Ben Sinnott day 3 all day.
Yeah, like I said, give me the guy who, you know, has that versatility. And K-State put a lot on his plate. But yeah, no, and like I said, he's one of those guys that I kind of blocked out just because it's like, okay, everybody wants to know KU, K-State, Mizzou, who are your guys, and so you kind of like, I take it always with a grain of salt. I'll be honest, I really haven't watched too much of Ben Sinnott. I've maybe, oh goodness, I might have watched half of one game and went, what am I doing? And moved on. So I need to give the kid a chance. So, all right, take us home. Let's get through this last list.
Yeah. So I'm gonna throw out my last guy on the guy I just want to watch a little bit more, and that's the Isaac Rendo, running back from Louisville. In one of our earlier episodes, I put a plug on. You know, we talked about running backs, and Jawar Jordan, the starter for Louisville, was one of my guys. So I watched a lot of Louisville this year. But Isaac was one of those guys that just kind of popped up from game to game. Every once in a while, he'd pop out and he'd have a huge game, and then he'd come back and be serviceable. But you know, he came in at 6 foot 221. You know, he ran a 4.3 340, which was way faster than I expected it to run. So he's a good size. He's good speed. I just think there's some of those vision and nuances and maybe a little bit of patience when it comes to setting up blocks and making the right reads and hitting the right holes. But I think he did himself. He opened up a lot of eyes for people to go back and take a look at him because he's got the build, he's got the speed. I just think he just happened to be playing behind Jawar Jordan, who was really, really good this year too. So,
yeah. Real quick before we move on, I want to give a shout out, and we'll see if we get to them. And I know you've got eyes, but you mentioned these guys. I can't remember if it was in an episode or if we were just chatting beforehand, but you were talking about a group of offensive linemen out of South Dakota State.
Yeah.
And two of those guys, I mean, they're smaller school guys. They don't have, they don't have the resources that a lot of these bigger school guys do. But they came and they held their own. In fact, Garrett Greenfield, who's a tackle out of South Dakota State, led the offensive lineman in vertical. Mason McCormick was fourth. And then everybody was freaking out over was it the 20-yard shuttle or the 3-cone? What was it?
They put it under Mims's name, but it was actually
it was Mims. Oh yeah, it was no, it wasn't. It was the 20-yard shuttle.
Yeah,
they thought it was.
They thought it was Marius Mims, but yeah, it was McCormick.
It was actually McCormick, and
they were those two boys were on my preseason FCS list that we didn't necessarily get to on an episode, but guys that we definitely talked about before we recorded our first episode. But yeah, those two dudes are key reasons why SDSU has gone back-to-back champs in the FCS, as much as it pains me being a Bison guy to see the Jack. But those guys are legit players, and they're going to be really good NFL players too. So McCormick, especially at a guard, he can come in at the FCS level and he can plug and play and come in and start. I think Greenfield has that opportunity as well. So very good players. Go watch some Rabbit football if you want to watch some more good old line play.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get into some FCS stuff. So, all right, the next category is named after, of course, the legendary late. He was the Cardinals coach at the time. Dennis Green. He went on the legendary rant after the Bears, came back and beat them. They are who we thought they were. This is exactly what I expected from this guy, and that it makes sense that this happened that way. I'm going to get two out of my way just because we've already talked about two of them. Xavier Leggett, I've watched him. I knew he was going to be an athletic freak. Still don't know who he is, but I knew that he was going to be an athletic freak. And then the other one, Xavier Worthy, again, not necessarily a negative thing, but I knew he was going to be fast. I didn't think he was going to be that fast, but I knew he was going to be fast. I knew that was going to be his primary skill. I knew that was going to be the thing that really sold people on him. He was running for his life, and it worked out. It's going to work out very well for him come April. But I am not moving him, way up my draft board and, overreacting to this. It's really impressive. Don't get me wrong. But some of us are now. I will say to our friend Garrett's credit, he's been a big fan of Xavier Worthy before he ran the 4.21 40. However, I don't see it. I'll root for him if he ends up in Kansas City. That's all I'll say. But I was not, that's one where I'm like, we don't need to panic and overreact to this.
Mm-hmm.
So,
agreed.
All right, who else do you got, Randy, on your "they are who we thought they were" list?
Yeah, so I'm gonna throw out a couple more wide receivers. Some of the bigger body guys that I think Kansas City is missing with A.D. Mitchell and Brian Thomas. You and I, we've been on Brian Thomas for about halfway through the season. We caught on to this guy, and we're like, this dude could have a whole lot of fun in Arrowhead, and we could have a lot of fun watching him. I think, however, how he tested at the combine, I think put him out of reach for us without moving up significantly.
I don't know, Randy. I heard he kicks puppies in his free time. Maybe we can start that rumor now.
It's going to have to take something like that to knock him down a board or two. But
even then, he's still going top 20.
Yeah, right.
It's going to be like
he solidified himself as wide receiver 4 in my eyes, and I think he's going to be a top 15 pick. At 6'2", 205, running that, or 210, running that 4.33, 10.6 broad. He's just that dude's. Yeah. And kind of the same thing with A.D. Mitchell. They're that bigger guy that I think we're kind of missing. That 6'2", 205. He ran a 4.34, a 39.5-inch vert, but his 11.4 broad jump. That's he's got some springy legs. So I think those two guys would give the Chiefs an aspect that I think we're kind of missing. But those two are kind of the dudes that I kind of thought were going to show up and say, hey, this, don't forget about us. We're legit. So,
yeah, I think A.D. Mitchell is. I will amend it to say he is who Avery said he was, because that's another one of Avery's guys.
Yeah,
that's a big one. But no, Brian Thomas, man. If I had a draft crush this year, it's probably Brian Thomas. And I'll be honest, the 4.21 is impressive. I think Brian Thomas doing what he did, especially, I think if you look at their 10-yard splits. Xavier Worthy's 10-yard split was 1.49. Brian Thomas was 1.50. Mm-hmm. Brian Thomas weighs 44 pounds more. 44 pounds.
Yeah.
More. And then the first 10 yards, and that matters a lot. And the yards in the first 10 yards off the line of scrimmage.
Right.
Brian Thomas is moving just as fast as Xavier Worthy.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying.
Exactly.
And that's not to say that Xavier Worthy's slow. Those are respectable numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Brian Thomas, I tweeted about this. I probably should just it's been the big three for a while. I think it's the big four now. Like there are four. It's hard. It's hard for me to go. Oh yeah, that's a blue chip guy. But man, everything I've seen, I just wish he had a bigger body of work. But
Right.
yeah, no, I absolutely am right there with you. Brian Thomas ran so well and right out of my heart because
Yeah, and I expected him to be like a 4.45, 4.
Yeah,
that range.
I thought 4.38 would be good for him. Like that would be really, really impressive.
Yeah, 4.33 that popped. That popped for me.
Yeah, I've got one more wide receiver on my list, and this is a really interesting one. Who probably I'm also going to go back and look at, but Keon Coleman, not the best athletic tester, not the best 40-yard time. I'm looking here while I've got the 10-yard splits open. He's not that far down. Where is he? I didn't expect him. So he ran his 10-yard split was 1.54, so not terrible.
No.
6'3", 213, that's about what we expected. But a 4.61 40-yard dash, especially on this track at Indy, and like they replaced it a couple years ago. It was and since then I feel like everybody's running in the 4.3s or the 4.2s. Like not exciting. The kind of the redeeming thing for me with him was his gauntlet, right. Testing the time. The two things that I saw was like one, he was I think the only receiver who got over 20 miles per hour while running the gauntlet. Right. Let me back up in case you're not sure. If you're not familiar with what the gauntlet is, it's where the receivers run sideline to sideline. So they start on one sideline and they run across the one of the yard marking lines, and their goal is to stay in a straight line on that and to go as fast as they can. And they're catching balls from the left and the right, alternating left and right. And I think it's an underrated drill that I really appreciated that they've started doing like GPS speed tracking on it. Yeah. Because not only was he the only one who kept his speed up there, but he was on his spot. He didn't get moved off his spot to make catches, which was good. Now he's using his length. So I still think he's a good prospect. I think he might fall a little bit, which would be awesome for Kansas City.
His play speed looked better than his timed 40 speed. I honestly thought he was going to be like a 4.5 flat guy, so he wasn't too far off of the 4.6. Was a little I would have liked to see
his other stuff, vertical and other stuff was kind of meh. Yeah, well, they weren't terrible, but at the same time, he's 6'3", so he doesn't really have to jump over.
Right. Yeah. 38-inch vertical. That's not. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not blow you out of the water crazy. But he was one of those guys too that just throughout the course of the year, I would get really excited about him for a while, and then he'd kind of fall off. And then you watch his highlights, you're like, dude, if you could just do this on a consistent basis, and I think that's the thing. It's consistency with him. Sometimes he played out of his mind like a beast, and then sometimes he just kind of fell off and wasn't really there. So I think he's got some amazing skill sets. I think he's got a tenacious attitude when he's got the ball in his hands when it comes to the stiff arm and hurdling guys and trying to run over people. He's got the body size that I like. It just seems to be like sometimes he shuts it down and doesn't play to his full ability at all times, and that kind of bothers me.
Yeah, I think you say the same thing about A.D. Mitchell too sometimes. But I'm going to cheat and throw one more in, and then I'll let you take two more, and then actually I'll let you finish off your list. I've got one I want to mention at the end because I know you and I are going to be in agreement on this one. So my other one on my list of they are who they thought they were, Troy Fountain. We've already talked about him, but phenomenal athlete, moved, impressed. I expected him to do really well. He did really well. That one as expected. So that was, and again, that's where this can be a good thing or a bad thing. Keon Coleman, I didn't expect him to run really fast. I didn't expect him to be, super athletic. That verified that. But we did see some other things in his testing that were, again, I think that he's a better football player than athlete. I agree with Randy consistency. But yeah, Troy Fountain. I'm like, yep, yeah, put a bow on it. Like, so who else do you have, Randy? And then, like I said, well, I'm pretty sure we'll agree on my last one. But
Right. So, I'm going to throw Braden Fisk in there. Ever since Avery turned us on, and you watched him week one, you're talking about Jared Verse and some of the other guys in that defense, and you're like, hold up a minute, there's another dude here who caused a lot of chaos and did some really good things, and he just progressively was just that steady lunchbox doing the dirty work, busting his ass, and he's got that motor for a defensive tackle that just go. And I'm like, he had some things to prove, coming in from Western Michigan and to the big program, and he did himself a whole lot of favors at the combine. At 6'4", 296, he ran a 4.7 840. That's a big dude running pretty quick. I would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more, than the 26 reps on the bench, but he's some of those bigger, taller guys with the longer arms. It's hard to pump out some of those bench reps. But Braden Fisk, he did himself a whole lot of favors. But we were on him early, and he was like, all right, he kind of solidified who we were kind of talking about all year. I'm going to throw in one that I've dogged on this kid for a long time, and this just kind of solidified some things for me. He is who he is who I thought he was. Spencer Rattler, straight up pedestrian. 6 foot nothing, 211 nothing. Ran a 4.95, a 9 foot. He is a pedestrian athlete. Even when it came to watching him throw, none of his throws wowed me at all. Decent accuracy in the short and intermediate routes, but he overthrew every single long ball, and his placement running, throwing guys out of bounds, not giving them an opportunity to catch the ball inbounds and get upfield. He is a 6th round draft pick to me. And I know there's some guys out there who say he's quarterback 1 in this class, and you were out of the board to think that he is anything more than a project career backup at best.
Yeah. So Spencer was last in the 20-yard shuttle and the 3-cone drill and the broad jump, and he didn't do. I take it back. He was 3rd of 5 in the vertical. He was 3rd out of 4 in the 10-yard splits. He was last in the 40-yard time, and and it's not like he. I mean, once upon a time we thought he had arm talent, but it's just not there. I hear that he. I will say this. I've heard that he going to South Carolina and all that stuff has really made him mature and change a lot.
I would hope so, because if everybody remembers him from the QB1 documentary and at Netflix, he was a spoiled little snot-nosed entitled kid that I couldn't tolerate watching. And maybe a lot of it's just soured on him from that point. But I'm like, just watching throughout the course of the year in the combine, I'm just like, this dude is not no.
Man, I tell you what, Randy, we're recording that if the Chiefs take Spencer Rattler on day 3, around 6 or 7, you will be the proud owner of a Kansas City Chiefs. You'll be the first one to get a Spencer Rattler Kansas City Chiefs jersey. Dude, I will make sure it happens.
I will blow my no. Hard no.
If you're listening, I'm calling in my one favor from that one time in Vegas.
You know what I'm talking about? He brings Spencer Rattler in to be the water boy. That's about it.
Yeah. So, all right. I've lost track of how many you have on your list. Are we at 5 yet?
No, I got my one guy. I got my one guy that I think is our guy.
Oh, do you think it's the guy I have?
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Is yours a good or a bad? They are who we thought they were.
Mine's a fantastic.
Oh, all right. Well, should we end we'll save yours. We'll end the note on a positive, or the show on a positive note. Right. I'm going to give you one, and I know exactly. And this is the prime example of watch the tape. Watch the tape, watch the tape, watch the tape. Because all of a sudden, this guy's getting, he's got to be a first-round pick. He's got to be a first-round pick. He had a good combine. Chop Robinson out of Penn State. Watch the tape. I'm not saying he can't play in the NFL. Not saying he's not even attacking the young man, but to say, oh, he had all his athletic testing. I've heard people say, oh, his numbers are just like Micah Parsons. Watch the tape. Even Micah Parsons had flashes that we just don't see. Yeah, it's like, you know,
Finish.
maybe you have Micah Parsons, or you have a Dife Owe from
up in Baltimore, right?
up in Baltimore, who hasn't done squat, and that's
you can test and do all those numbers. Yeah, go back and watch the film. The guy can't finish. He's so he can be disruptive. He can cause some pressures. But where are his tackles? Where are his sacks? Like, where are his numbers? Like, if you get to the quarterback at some point, you got to bring him down, right?
Yeah.
You get to the ball carrier, you got to bring him down. Make a secure tackle. Like, finish the play. Show me you can, make the play when it counts, and not just kind of get in someone's way or make him turn the wrong direction. The kid's got no finish. He's got tons of ability. I think he's undersized to play edge. He's explosive. He's fast. I'll give him that. But I don't see the production at all. So I'm with you there. He is not a first round pick to me. He is a project late second, early third.
Yeah. All right. Let's end this on a positive note. Who do you got for us?
I got my number one OT from start to finish this year, Joe Alt.
Yes.
The dude's a mountain. He's 6'8". He's 321 pounds. He ran a 4.05 40, a 1.73 10-yard split for a dude his size. He's fluid. He's athletic. You're watching him in the drills, like he is
so well built,
natural big man that can play tackle for you for a very, very long time. He is my clear-cut tackle one, has been all season long. I think he solidified that with his drill work, and if he makes it out of the top 6, I will be astonished.
Yeah, I agree. Joe Alt, and he just looked at 10-inch hands. I mean, that's like getting slapped with a frying pan. 2 of them just dunk.
Right.
And listen, I was married once. I know what that's like, so it's not fun.
But yeah, it's him being a former tight end, growing into that position, adding the weight, using that athleticism, his technique, And
the crazy thing is,
left tackle for 10 years. He's awesome.
The reason he wasn't OT1 for some people is, he could get better. All those things that we said, hey, he could grow in this area. He did, and some of these other guys went backwards, but it built in a lab. Obviously has the bloodlines, has all that. So, hey, we are about to hit the hour mark. We're going to get ourselves out of here. Let us know in the comments below who you thought we should have talked about, who you've got questions about, who you are going back to check out. And some other guys that went, I knew that's how that was going to go. So as always, we appreciate you taking the time to listen, to be here with us. I am Arrowhead Tom on Twitter. This is Randy, Chief of the North, also on Twitter. You can also give a follow. We forgot to mention Josh. Josh is somewhere in the ether.
He's somewhere out there. Twitter.
Hey, listen, if you're listening this far, we're mentioning you now, not on purpose. We didn't forget you at the top of the show on purpose, but give our regular co-host Josh Wingate a follow at Josh Wingate 302, also on the Twitter, and make sure you're following us on Twitter as well at Kingdom Recon. We are so close to draft season. We're going to start churning out some reports and talking more in depth and getting into some more mock drafts and some other scenarios. Off season is right around the corner. Make sure you're subscribing to our mothership channel, The Kingdom Says. They are at the Kingdom Says Pod on Twitter, and watch there because we're about to start. We're going to be doing a lot of crossover too, talking about off-season stuff for the Kansas City Chiefs. So until next time, my friends, you guys have a great night and stay safe.